Welcome back to the Knit Crowd as well as yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. Today we're going to work on the Ridges blanket. This is a knitted blanket and we're going to be using circular knitting needles today. This is a smaller version that you see here, but you're looking for circular knitting needles that are 29 inches in length as a minimum to hold all of the stitches. Now I wasn't sure what this exactly looked like, so of course I had to do a sample just out of curiosity because me and yarn get along real well. So this is really quite a simplistic design. Let me show you what it really looks like because this picture really I don't think does it justice. So using a solid colored yarn, look what it does. Isn't that neat? It's really quite neat. You got these nice deep ridges in here. This is something quite fabulous. Look at the edge work just like you see here. So it's a really very easy, and it's a double-sided pattern so it can be turned over on your sofa without any worries, and it's got some stretchability to it and it's quite fabulous. So let's talk a little bit about this pattern, because once you understand this pattern I think that you'll love it too as much as I do. So here's the pattern, and we're going to cast on 143 stitches if you were going to do it this way. Here's the secret. The first 5 stitches and the last 5 stitches are always going to be the same. They're just going to be straight knit stitch. So when you look at the sample here, just a knit stitch, you see it's on both sides just like so. So it's everything in between until you get to the other 5 that is going to be following this pattern. So one side it appears as the stocking knit, but on the other side it appears as the garter stitch, just like you see. So what I have is that I've been marking off on my list and as I was going along and making sure that I'm checking in order to make this really work. Really quite an easy pattern. You just got to stay within the confines of the pattern in order to get that look, but I'm telling you, me as a beginning knitter quite happy about it, and it's also for beginners too. So let's cast on. Let's see how far we're going to take you today. So let's begin. We're going to create a slip knot. Remember, there are slower tutorials available on our YouTube channel if you would like to go slower in the basic steps of knitting, including how to hold your knitting needles and the yarn and etc. So everybody kind of does it their own way, and obviously the videos that I show is kind of my preference, but I'm also trying to be standard to what everybody else is doing too. So let's cast on. So it says to do 143, but I'm just going to do a smaller example because I know that the first 5 and the last 5 have to be something different. So everything else in between just has to just work its way in, and it's really quite easy. So let's just insert our needle like we're going to do a knit stitch into the loop. Let's put the yarn onto our hands, wrap that back needle, bring it forward, and before you put it back onto this needle that I'm moving, see over here, you just twist it and come up underneath and slide on. So just go back into that one, wrap that back needle, pull forward, and then just twist. Okay, so it's a cast on with the twist transfer coming up like this. Okay, and you can just continue to move your way across in order to get this to work. Okay, so you can either do 143 or you can do anything that you wish in order to make this work. You just got to pay attention that the first 5 and the last 5 are going to be special stitches, and anything in between is all the fun stuff that we're going to be doing on today's pattern. So let me leave that with you, and I'll continue to cast on just a little bit more so that I can demonstrate this particular stitch work on this project with accuracy. Let's begin row number 1. It says to knit. That's all we have to do. So it doesn't matter about the first 5. It just says to knit. So let's insert in. This needle should be on the back side, wrapping it, flick it forward, and slide off. Always when you go to start knitting, the first row is a little bit tense, so don't worry about it if it's tense on your knitting needles and you're a beginner. That's normal. It'll relax after the second or third row. So you're just going to continue to do the knit stitch all the way down, all the way to the end, like so. So I'm just going to speed up a little bit. So I'm just learning how to knit. If you're just following me here on the Knit Crowd, I knitted a bit when I was a child, but I didn't knit a lot, and so I'm actually getting into the motion of actually disciplining myself to knit more, and because of that I'm actually speeding up, and Daniel's even saying to me that I'm actually getting quicker, which, you know, coming from a non-knitter and somebody that is appreciating that I love the yarn arts, it's a nice compliment to get, you know, a spouse to be able to confirm that you're doing something good. So you're just going to knit stitch all the way down to the very end, and that'll be row number 1. So every time we come back to row number 1, just straight knit stitch just like so. So you'll be coming back to this part in the tutorial if you need to come back at all. So just the knit stitch down. So let's go for row number 2. So my needles are reset back into my hand. The loaded stuff is on this side here. You can see me tapping it. So row number 2, anytime you hit row number 2, very simple. So row number 2 is going to be knit the first 5. So you're just always going to be knitting the first 5 and you'll be knitting the last 5 as well. So knit the first 5 as normal. So 1, and you got to count it, and 2. This is aerobics for knitting. Then 3 and 4. And as they would say on exercise television, and 5, and that's it. Relax. So what we have now is that the next one's all the way until you get to the final 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, like so. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing for everything except for the final 5. So you may have a whole thing of knitting here. The final 5 have to be done the same way. So we're going to purl the remaining up until the last 5. So move this yarn strand forward. Okay, so just come around, move it forward before you start purling, and insert, and instead of going into the back like a knit stitch, you want to go straight on in like this. Okay, this is called the purl, and we have slower tutorials available just on purling if you want it. And wrap that needle, flick it backwards, and slide. So you're going to continue to purl. You only have to move it forward. Remember how I moved it forward? Well, now that you've done the first purl, it'll stay on the front side for you, so you don't have to do that again. So you're just going to continue to purl up until you see the last 5 stitches. Okay, and let me move my fingers out of the way so I can see how many more we have left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I got 2 more to go. And of course yours will be a lot longer than mine. Mine's just an example just to show you how to do the stitch work. Once you confirm and got the final 5, move this back. Okay, so it was in the forward, move it back and knit the final 5. So 1, actually I don't even have to count, I've already pre-counted, so you can relax in that. You put your eyes back on the television. I haven't got gifted enough to be able to knit without looking at it intensely yet, but I will one day. I can count on that. So that's it. So the final 5 are just knit. So you knit the first 5, you purled everything else, and then the final 5 you were knitting. That was row number 2. Let's turn this into our hands now and let's move on to row number 3. So rows number 3 and 4 are identical to each other. Just straight knitting. No counting the first 5. You only had to do the first. And we're gonna knit the first, all of these stitches all the way across. This is now going to create the purl, or the stocking knit stitch that you saw. And then in the next time on row number 4 when we straighten it, it's gonna then start transferring it in order to create the ridge on the other side of the project. So you notice that the ridges are not very deep as far as distance, and it's because of rows number 3 and 4. Just very easy. Okay, so this is row number 3, straight knitting all the way across. And when you're starting off like this as a beginner, you're thinking, are you really doing it right? Just stick with me, boys and girls. We can get this figured out for you. When there's a will, there's a way. Okay, so let's continue along. So that was row number 3. So you just straight knit across. So let's turn our knitting needles and go for row number 4. Very simple. You can see that the stocking knit stitch is started on the other side here. Okay, right in the middle, and on the outside you have those outside edges that are the knit. So continuing along, let's move along. So row number 4, just resetting the knitting needles back into your hand, you've got to knit, just straight knitting going across. So we got an email from somebody that they're having trouble teaching their child on how to do left-handed, and you know the reality is that in knitting and crochet there are people with one hand or even using their feet learning how to knit and crochet, and it's so funny that we want to give up on somebody that is left-handed, but the reality is that when there's strong desire, people find a way to do things. There are some people that use their armpit in order to hold their knitting needles as well. Does it make it wrong? Absolutely not. It's whatever is most comfortable for you, but don't give up on people. Be innovative, and of course use the strengths that they have within in order to expand the skills. Everybody learns differently, and it's up to you to really figure out what is going to make that person click. So this is row number 4. This is the straight knitting. So rows number 3 and 4 we're straight knitting back and forth, and this is now going to cause that ridge to happen, and we are going to move on to row number 5 next. So let's turn the knitting needles. Okay, so you can see here that you have the stocking knit stitch appearing in the middle here. You have the garter stitch happening on the outsides, and so because of this last row we're now going to transfer and make the ridges that you saw within the first example. So let's begin again, and row number 5. So row number 5 is very similar to row number 2. It's the same thing. So the first 5 get counted as knitting. So 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 5, just like that. So we just straight knit it again. So everything else except for the final 5 are going to be purl. So remember what we did with purl. Take this strand, move it forward, going in as a purl, and now we're gonna purl. So you're gonna continue to purl until you can see 5 stitches left, and then what are you gonna do? Are you paying attention? Hello, is this thing on? That's right. Yep, you're gonna do 5 knitting 5 knit stitches at the end. That's all this pattern is. It's really quite fabulous. The picture does not really show the grooves in it, and because of that you're really not sure what you're looking at. So now I can see that there's a final 5 on here. Move this yarn back and you're going to knit the final 5. So this was row number 5. So we have one more row before the repeat pattern. Before, you just have to reverse this video if you want to redo and start again, and you keep doing rows 1 through 6 over and over and over. Okay, so here's what it looks like at this point. You can see the stocking knit stitches right here. It's wonderful, isn't it? Okay, so this now is creating the stocking knit stitch. It's right in here. You can barely see it, but it is there. And now we're just gonna do row number 6 together. So row number 6, very easy. What do you think it's gonna be? That's right, it's gonna be just straight knitting. So that's it. So what you're gonna notice, let's examine this more carefully as I knit across. So rows 1 and 6 are just straight knitting, and rows 3 and 4 are just straight knitting. So really it's only rows 2 and 5 that have the fancy footwork of the purling in order to create the edge. That's how easy this thing is. That's why it's classified as a beginner. Man, I'm too excited. So I'm just straight knitting. So what you're gonna do then is that you're gonna continue to repeat the pattern 1 through 6. Reverse this video if you need it. And of course on our YouTube channel we have videos on how to be able to cast off. Just use our search engine and how to cast off, and it'll work exactly the way that it's gonna show you in that tutorial. So when you're ready to cast off, just come right back here and join us, and then you can see how it's done and realize that your project is on the way to completion once you get to that point. So this is another free pattern available by Yarnspirations. I'm Mikey on behalf of the Knit Crowd. Thank you so much for joining me, and please enjoy. So this is what we have so far. Let me pull out the original example. So what you're gonna have is these beautiful ridges just like those happening within your project, and I think that you're going to enjoy this, and it's got a lot of elasticity to it and something that you can cuddle up on the sofa. Till next time, have a great day. We'll see you again real soon. Bye bye.